What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Weekend Roundup here on Touchline Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content I put out every single week. If you are looking for World Cup final reaction, I have a whole video dedicated just to that, so be sure to check that one out as well. This video is everything else that had happened in this super busy weekend across the world of soccer, beginning with Lionel Messi and Inter Miami winning Leagues Cup. I wanted to save most of my thoughts until this tournament was actually over and we got to see if Inter Miami pulled it off. Obviously, they did when beating Nashville in a really captivating penalty shootout. So here we go. There's been all this talk about if Messi can come in and do this, what does that say about MLS? MLS is garbage. Look how bad the league is. Look how bad the defending is. Yada, yada, yada. So I want to start by posing a very simple question. If it is that easy to win trophies in Major League Soccer, why didn't the other big names that have come in the past 5 to 10 years win trophies, have team success? Unless I am missing something, I went through and looked as carefully as I could. Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, Wayne Rooney, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Thierry Henry, Kaká, Didier Drogba, Andrea Pirlo, and David Villa combined to win a singular trophy in Major League Soccer. That was Thierry Henry's Supporters' Shield with the New York Red Bulls. Didier Drogba played in a Canadian Championship final for Montreal. That is it in terms of finals for those players. Now, I know some of them didn't have long spans in MLS. Some of them just didn't perform well in the league. Pirlo, Lampard, Gerrard. Some of them were really good. Henry, Kaká, Drogba, Zlatan, David Villa. These were players that made impacts. Now, not quite to the level of Messi, but he won as many trophies in a month, in his first month of Major League Soccer, than those guys did combined in their entire MLS career. Why is that if it is so easy to have success in this league? Now, yes, none of these players are Messi. That's part of it. But the other part of it is Tata Martino. It's Joseph Martinez looking a little bit reinvigorated. It's DeAndre Yedlin getting a new lease on life now that he gets to play a completely different way and gets to essentially operate as a winger most of the time. It's the center backs really stepping up. It's the terrific tactical game plans that Miami has had. It's everything. It's not just, and obviously it's also the injection of talent and quality and experience with Busquets, Alba, and Messi. You can give Inter Miami and Messi their credit without denigrating the rest of the league. And also, if it was such a cakewalk, why did it take 2 penalty shootouts to get this trophy? Yes, there were some blowouts along the way, but it's not like Miami cruised to this title. Dallas gave them all kinds of issues. As bad as the Union were, they created all kinds of issues for Miami in the second half. Nashville were the better team for a vast majority of that game, outside of 30 seconds from Messi and Campana's chance to win it with the last kick of the game. Outside of that, it was all Nashville. And that's the reality of playing against Messi. You give him 1 inch and he's going to score a goal, and you give him another inch and he hits the post and nearly wins the game on those 2 moments without having created much of anything else. They're going to win games like that sometimes because he is just that much better than everybody else. And that's the same if he was playing in Liga or La Liga or wherever. If you give him an opportunity, the margin of error is just so slim. But by the end of this tournament, I had come back to the point I originally started at, which was they are not going to just steamroll everybody. They are clearly one of the best teams in the league. That is undisputed. They look better than I thought they would, to be completely honest. And it is a big deal that they were able to navigate this tournament. And if they get into the MLS playoffs, it's going to be fascinating because they've proven that they can go on the road and win these kind of games. But it's not like they were uber convincing from start to finish for 90 minutes every game. You can get at them. Nashville and Philadelphia, to me, are the two teams best equipped to deal with this. And you saw Nashville come out with a really good game plan, be a little bit more aggressive, because you can't just sit back and defend. That part's become clear too. You can't just absorb pressure. You have got to make them defend and make them work as well. You've got to stretch them the way that Nashville did in that second half. And sometimes it's just not going to be enough because they have Lionel Messi and you don't. But this doesn't have to be a commentary in MLS. They came really close to getting knocked out twice. They found a way to win two penalty shootouts. They had some really impressive performances against Atlanta and against Philadelphia. Although the Union are going to want that back, and I really hope they get a chance in the playoffs because that game would be fascinating. Because those goals were self-inflicted. It wasn't like Miami ripped the Union to shreds. The Union did that to themselves more than anything else. But that's the pressure Miami puts you under for 90 minutes. Is if you make a mistake, you're probably giving up a goal. Or at least a really good scoring opportunity. So I'm going to end this where I started it. If it is so easy to do what Miami just did, and if you think Miami is just going to roll to an MLS Cup and that nobody can stop this team after the challenge that Nashville just gave them, can you please explain to me why none of these other guys, Didier Drogba, Zlatan, Thierry Henry, Kaká, Lampard, Gerrard, Rooney, Villa, Pirlo, whoever, outside of one supporters shield, basically didn't come close to winning an MLS-specific trophy? It's not that easy. I will continue. There was a moment where I had to wonder if I was being too protective of MLS. And watching what Nashville did, my conclusion was I'm not. This league is really good. Messi is brilliant. He's going to stand out in any league in the world he plays in. He's made a lot of other teams that are supposed to be much better than these MLS teams look bad too. Inter Miami are a very good team. Tata Martino is the perfect manager. I said that from the beginning. This is not going to be a walk in the park, though. The more teams get used to them, once you've now seen it once so that you're not starstruck the second time you get these guys, end of the regular season, in the playoffs, whatever, I do think this is going to get more difficult. They could win MLS Cup. Absolutely. They got to get into the playoffs first, and they've got to be nearly perfect to do it. I'm not convinced that's going to happen, which is why this tournament was so important for them. But don't make this about Major League Soccer. Because if it's that easy, all these other people would have come in and had that kind of team success too. A couple other games I wanted to mention quickly from the Premier League. Newcastle, Manchester City. Manchester City get one goal, a very well taken one, and that is enough to get past Newcastle at home. Don't have too much on this game. The one thing I want to say, though, is with the way Newcastle's schedule is set up in this really difficult stretch at the beginning of the season, had they gotten the point here and they came close, there would have been a really interesting conversation to be had about how much of a factor they can be in the title race. I really, truly believe that, assuming everything the next couple weeks goes fine as well. They don't get the point. Obviously, you're not expecting to take anything at the Etihad, so it's not a huge deal. But they really could have made this an interesting conversation and really put themselves in the title race by getting a point, and they nearly did. The concern, though, is the same from last season, and it's what ultimately separated the two teams in this game. Is Newcastle's attack going to be good enough? Defensively, they are right there with Manchester City. Go look at the goals conceded. Go with the losses last season. They are right there. They have the defense of a Premier League champion. What they don't have is City's attack. And they don't necessarily have the kind of players who can determine a game the way Phil Foden and Julian Alvarez did. Now, they've obviously upgraded with Sandro Tonali, with Harvey Barnes. I do think they're going to be better in attack. The question is how much better. Because you've got to have a significant upgrade to go from being a top 4 team to pushing 90 points, which you're going to have to get to, even if City has a not so great season. Somebody's going to hit the 90-point mark. I seem to be higher on Newcastle than most people. I generally feel justified coming out of this game in that belief. But they got to score goals. And they haven't proven in those decisive games that they can always be relied upon to do that. Obviously, they scored goals against Manchester City last season. I expect them to score goals when these teams meet again at St. James Park. But that one moment costs you a point and gives Manchester City 2. And Newcastle couldn't create that moment they needed to respond to Manchester City's. On the City side, the one thing I do want to point out here with Kevin De Bruyne's injury, that bench is just not scary. Your starting 11 is still brilliant, and Julian Alvarez has been phenomenal. Phil Foden was really, really good in this game. As much as I want to defend Kevin De Bruyne and feel like he is still underrated, it's simultaneously a huge loss because he's that good and not a huge loss because of what they're replacing him with. My thing is, you were short to begin with, and now you have a long-term injury to a regular starter. Somebody has to be able to come into games and change them. Whether that's Calvin Phillips, who obviously is not really an attack-minded player, whether that could be Cole Palmer moving forward with his good start to the season in terms of, Community Shield, Super Cup, those kind of things. But they don't have Riyad Mahrez and Bernardo Silva and Julian Alvarez to bring off the bench. That is the one thing I'm monitoring for this team now that there's an injury, and a long-term one. They don't have the proven bodies to replace Kevin De Bruyne. They can replace him in the starting 11, but what happens when you need a game changer, not somebody to go help you hold on to a lead? I'm fascinated to monitor City substitutions and how Pep Guardiola manages over the next couple months. And then the other game I want to mention quickly, Tottenham take down Manchester United. Much better performance from Manchester United, which, the bar wasn't particularly high after that Wolves showing. But they did look much more confident, much more organized, and Spurs were just really good in this game. I'm not too concerned about Manchester United from this performance. The question I come out of this game with is, who does it end up saying more about? Is this a statement win for Spurs that maybe this team is actually capable of competing for a Champions League spot? And that Ange Postecoglou has this thing going and that they're going to be really tough to beat at home and that the fans are already behind them? Because this was a huge momentum builder early in his tenure. I've said from the beginning, if you want early success, he's not the guy to hire. But this is a big early win. Plus, you get all of the long-term, short to or medium to long-term improvement stuff that Postecoglou is so good at. But do we look back on this game and go, it was United at home, it's just not that big of a deal after, United now have a very bad performance and a loss in 2 games? Or do United build off of this performance and the positives you can take away from it, start picking up some wins, and all of a sudden this is a kind of a foundational win to build off of if you're Tottenham? That's the part I'm not sure about yet. I know Spurs looked awfully good. That midfield was fantastic, particularly Yves Bissouma, and Sarr obviously got his goal. And eventually you're going to bring Rodrigo Bentancur back into that. They're not all that far off from being an incredibly dangerous team. There's some holes that need to be filled, and this is going to be a season of transition. But now with the Harry Kane money coming in and the pieces that you have, and a manager that I believe in that is doing the hard part and the part that has to happen first, which is to just get people excited about this club again, it was a big win and a really exciting one if you're Spurs to see the team perform that way. Now, the question is, can they show up week in and week out and do this? And what does beating Manchester United at home ultimately mean? That is all for the weekend roundup. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.